kind of edit away a little there, I think. Yeah, we're live. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain there. Yes, Wizard of Oz reference. How's everybody doing this morning? It's 10:23. What do we got going on? We got turbo cam shirts going on. Today we're going to talk about supercharged small block Fords and specifically a roots blown small block Ford. So this is a test that I ran way back with a HOLLEY and YN. I think that they offered it as a YN blower too. I think it was a 174 blower, and we ran it on a small block Ford, which I think was a 331. It was a 327 or a 331 stroker. And I did some cool stuff on it that I found the results very interesting because it surprised me that we didn't get, honestly, and you guys let me know what you think in the comments. It surprised me that we didn't get bigger power gains from the stuff that we did. I mean, we did get good gains, but I just think that they should have been more. I'm wondering if the blower itself was holding things back, kind of, judging by the gains that we got when we did similar testing NA. But so we had a small block Ford. I'm like I said, it was either a 327 or a 331 stroker. It was not a 347. It was the shorter stroke. It was a 3250 stroke crank. It had scat stuff in it. The crank was not a forged crank. It was just a cast crank. It did have forged H-beam rods and forged flat top pistons in it. We started off with running this thing with the factory stock E7TE iron heads. They had valve springs in them because we would later put a camshaft in it. But we started off with the stock cam. So stock cam, stock heads, and then the little stroker short block. We ran it with, and we even started off with a full stock exhaust. So we had a factory stock exhaust manifolds, factory H pipe, cats, and then a length of exhaust back behind the cats and stuff. So we did what we could on the engine dyno to get all of that stuff hooked up, because I kind of wanted to see how restrictive that stuff was compared to the headers that we normally run on, because we would eventually step up to long tube headers on it. And it's interesting. We ran the blower with a 3.825 inch blower pulley and a 6-inch crank pulley. That produced a peak of 8.7 pounds. We ran it to 6,000 or 6,100. Interestingly enough, even with the stock cam, okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring this up here. You guys can't see it, but I can see it. Interestingly enough, this thing made peak power out at 6,100 RPM or so. So it was, I thought that was kind of surprising. We're going to talk about why. The reason that it's making peak power all the way out there, even with the stock cam and stock heads on the blower motor, is because that particular blower intake manifold, the lower intake manifold that the supercharger bolts on, is a short runner manifold. So it wants to run more engine speed. We had in addition to that, we had a slightly rising boost curve. So the thing, when we would load it at 3,000, it would make about 5.5 pounds. And then the boost curve would climb up to 8.7 pounds out at the power peak, which is at 6,100 RPM. So even with the mild cam and stuff, it was making peak power at a fairly high RPM. Again, short runners and a rising boost curve tend to do that. But run at that boost level, 8.7 pounds with the stock exhaust, stock cam, and stock heads. The blower had a 750 blower carburetor on it at 8.7 pounds. This thing made 435 horsepower and 427 foot-pounds of torque. So it did okay. It was a 400 horsepower small block with stock stuff. So if you just take this one was a stroker, so you get a little bit less on a 302. But if you just put a blower on there, you're going to be doing fairly well. And it worked fairly well with the stock heads and cam and exhaust. So we took the exhaust off, and then we put our 1.5" hooker super comp long tube headers and collector extensions and mufflers, just the 3-inch, free flow, straight through MagnaFlow mufflers. So a really good exhaust, essentially. And the power did pick up. The boost dropped down to, but not by very much, only 0.2 of a pound, 2 or 3/10, down to 8.4, 8.5 pounds. The initial load in was a little bit lower too at 5.4, but the power only went up to 441 horsepower and 435 foot-pounds of torque. So the gains are really not very great in fact, let's see, 80 and 88. Yeah, you're talking about the biggest gain we got was only like 8 or 9 horsepower. And that's going from the cat H pipe and mufflers with I think that no, this thing had stock exhaust manifolds to long tube headers, which surprised me greatly because normally when we put headers on anything, even just on a stock motor, it picks up power. And I thought for sure, because it's a blower and we're making a lot more power, that the stock exhaust would be way more restrictive. But we just didn't see that on this test. So I thought first of all that was interesting. So then the next thing we did was we put heads and a camshaft in this thing. We didn't do them individually. We did them both at the same time. And what we did was put a set of Canfield 170 as cast aluminum heads on it. And then we also put a Comp Extreme Energy 264 cam. So a step below that 274 cam that I normally run. And I don't run that cam a lot, so I have to see what that is. That's a 212, 218 camshaft. And 512 lift, 114 degree lobe separation angle. 266. Yeah, I think it was a 264. I don't think it was a 266. So we put that camshaft in there and put those Canfield heads on there, and it picked up power. It picked up a fairly good bit of power. We went from 441 to 491 horsepower and 462 foot-pounds of torque. So it's a good power gain. It's 50 horsepower, so that's and 30 or so foot-pounds of torque. The boost dropped from a peak of 8.5 pounds to 6.8 pounds. So we dropped, more than a pound and a half, 1.7 pounds of boost. So lower boost, more power, obviously always, that's a good combination. That's kind of what you want. But again, here again, I was kind of surprised that we didn't get a bigger power gain, because we know that heads all by themselves, especially if you already have a camshaft in on an NA motor, we know that those heads by themselves are worth 50 horsepower on an NA combination. We know that the camshaft is worth 20 or 30 all by itself. You just can't keep adding these things up, apparently. So again, I was very surprised that we didn't pick up more power. The boost drop, which is what you would expect on on any combination when you have whether it's a centrifugal blower or a roots blower, and you keep the blower speed the same and you improve the motor that you're putting that boost to, the boost comes down and the power goes up, because when the boost comes down, the flow rate through the blower goes up. All that's normal stuff. I was just surprised that we didn't get more of a power gain with this combination. And so I'm going to go ahead and put our poll up. Okay, the question is this small blower, the small roots blower, holding back some of the power gains offered by the performance modifications that we're going over in this discussion? So we jumped from 441 horsepower to 491 horsepower. The boost dropped from 8.5 pounds down to 6.8 pounds. And then we did what you always do with a blower. We added more boost. And as we know, adding more boost always adds more power. And it did. This time, the boost went up to a peak of 10.4 pounds. So we went from a 3.825, so little more than 3.8 inches, down to 3.25 inch blower pulley. And that sped the blower up. We're making more boosts. And the power jumped up from 491 to 525 horsepower. And torque was over 500 foot-pounds at 508 foot-pounds of torque. So we saw a pretty good gain. In fact, we saw almost as much of a gain if you look at spots along the curve. 460, 500. Yeah, we got in some cases, changing the pulley got bigger gains in torque, which is exactly what you'd expect from boost, compared to the heads and cam intake. The heads cam intake, or the heads and and cam picked up a little bit more total power gain from the stock stuff than the boost did. And again, you would kind of more expect that, because you expect the gain to be fairly consistent with boost from changing the pulley on the blower. But on a heads cam thing, you're going to get less of a gain down low. In fact, it's oftentimes with a camshaft, you could even lose power down low, but then the gains are going to increase as you go up in engine speed. So all of that stuff is really fairly normal. It's just that I thought that the gains that we would get from these things would be, more pronounced, especially given the fact that if we ran this motor, and we did, if you run this motor NA with those Canfield heads and that extreme energy cam and a dual plane intake manifold and the carburetor and headers, it's going to make like 360 or 370 horsepower NA. So it's going to do pretty well. So then we were at 525 at like 10 pounds of boost. And that doesn't seem like a very good gain. So 525 minus 370. So we were gaining 155 horsepower at 10 pounds of boost. That's not a lot. That's not a good percentage amount. So let me know if you think that was, and we know that this blower can support more power than this because we've made more power than this, although you'd have to spin it fairly fast to do that. But I still, this was this is one of my favorite Roots blower things that we did. I liked running that blower I ran it on the 302. I ran it on this stroker motor. We did a comparison with this Roots blower and a turbo and a Paxton Supercharger to show the difference, essentially to show the differences in power gains offered by, when you run these different kinds of boosters to these motors, to show the difference in what kind of boost curve they generate and then the associated power curve that they generate. It's pretty good stuff. But the exhaust test surprised me. I thought that the headers would gain a lot more than that. I was hoping that the heads and cam would gain a little bit more than that. We could have tried a different camshaft. I know when I went from the 258 cam to the 274 cam, when we tested that on the Kenny Bell Supercharged deal, the 274 cam was, a good bit better in terms of power compared to we did a comparison with a stock cam and then 258 and then 274. The 274 cam made it a good bit more power. Maybe this cam was too small, but I don't think so. What I would have liked to have done is I would have liked to have run this combination. Now, maybe I did. maybe thinking back now. I think I ran this combination. I think that this is the combination that I ran when we did the comparison with the Paxton and the. So if I ran the same combination with the Paxton, I think that we did, and so I think we ran different kinds of blowers on this, different kinds of boost, and I think that the Paxton made a lot more power. So we're going to zoom in on that. Yeah, the Paxton made almost 600 horsepower, so it was up quite a bit compared to this Roots blower. So maybe it is a blower sizing thing. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And the turbo also at the same boost, which is kind of what we would expect, made a good bit more power. Blowers and turbos. Yeah, so this looks like it was a 327. Yeah, the Paxton made 617 run at the same boost level. Turbo is right there. Let's see our test description here. Oh, I take that back. That's that had different cylinder heads on it, so it's not a direct test. So we ran Victor Junior heads on it, but I don't think the Victor Junior heads would be too much better than the. I don't think the Victor Juniors would be too much better than the Canfield heads. I could look that date up and see. But cool stuff nonetheless. You know, I like putting the blowers on there, but I like more than just taking the whatever your NA motor that you're starting out with and putting the blower on. That's always good. But then I like doing the comparison testing of other things like changing different heads, changing different camshafts, trying exhaust systems, and I like doing that when we have the motor on the dyno and we're going to put the blower on there anyway. I like doing those comparisons NA and supercharged, just so we get an idea on, do we get more gains when we have the blower on there? Do we get less? Does it like one combination more than the other? Obviously more data is always better. So if we can get that, if I can do all that testing, if I have time and we have organized it enough, then we can get lots and lots of data, and obviously more is always better. Let's see what you guys got going on. Almost done rebuilding the 350. Very cool. By the way, announcement. I'm going to LS Fest West, so I'll be there. I'm going to have a little tent and stuff. The plan is to have the V12 LS on display. So come by, say hi, check it out. I'm working on trying to have shirts there available also. So you guys can come by and say hi. Special Agent, DMC, Turbo Sentra. I voted no after seeing how much power Richard squeezed out of the M90. I know it did. That M90 did well. This works out good. You're on early enough for me to watch the Supercross qualifying. Cool. Is it fair to say that if a given blower makes 500 horsepower on a small motor, the same blower is capable of 500 horsepower on a larger motor? Yes. Yeah, it'll just happen at a lower boost level. Just like I just showed here that whenever we change from the stock stuff, heads and cam, to going to an aftermarket set of heads and a different camshaft, we lower the boost and raise the power. Same thing would happen on 351. It's asking for more air. The blower will give it more air because it's spinning the same speed. It will give it more air, and you'll see that as a drop in boost. Is this a high helix blower? No, it's not. Finally found a blower intake for your 455 Olds. Very cool. Makes 500 horsepower now. What size blower would be good to get it to 800? A 671 probably. Or you could put one of the smaller blowers on it, but it's not going to be too small. Like a 800, you're getting to where you need a pretty good bit of blower. A 2.3 liter will do that. A 2650 would definitely do that. Ralph, 100%. Let's see. I'm torn between using a 174 or making my own M90 or a 112. Easy bolt on or spend some time to get more power. I don't know if Holley or YN even still offers those blowers anymore. I don't think that they do. Do you have one of those already, Funny Bike? Or there's probably people selling them used, I would imagine. I'm assuming it's a B&M YN type blower. Yeah, it is. It's a Roots blower. If it is, I don't think it has the efficiencies that the other air pumps have, and there's your lack of power. Yeah, it's not. They're not. They're not. They're an older design, and so it has two things. It's a Roots blower. Well, it has three things. It's a Roots blower. It's an older design Roots blower. It's not a twisted lobe deal. And also it's limited in its capacity because the amount of airflow that a positive displacement blower can supply is a function of the size of the blower and then the RPM of the blower. And then the efficiency of the blower is another thing. Darth, I don't know what you mean by thoughts, as always. How's our poll doing? 66 is the small roots blower holding back some of the power gains offered by the performance modifications that Richard just covered. All that won't fit on there. Yes, 66%, 34% no. I saw on a marketplace last week. It even had a stealth direct port nitrous set up under the intake. Oh, that's cool. I mean, you could put a simple plate system on it, which they like that too. I was thinking out loud, I would go turbo most of the time. Yeah, turbo would be, and I think if I look at the, yeah, to give you an idea, when I ran the roots blower versus the turbo, get rid of the Paxton. So people are often under the, let's see. People are often under the misconception that a roots blower makes lots and lots of torque, and it does. Compared to an NA motor, the roots positive displacement roots blower does very well. But if you look at as a comparison, we had the right size turbo on this. We had a 66 millimeter turbo on this. Let's see. Yeah, I think that this was a. I think it was a 66 millimeter turbo. This one had boost basically all the way through the curve. It had, but like at 4,200 RPM compared to the roots blower, 504 foot-pounds for the roots blower, 617 foot-pounds for the turbo. It just, you know, there's lots of power associated with driving with driving the blower. The other thing that kind of skews the thing on that test in favor of the turbo is that I limited it at a fixed amount of boost. Okay, you can only run 10 pounds. So with a turbo, it can run 10 pounds all the way through the curve. The blowers, like a centrifugal blower, isn't going to make 10 pounds until the top of the RPM range. So it has much less power down low than if the turbo is pulled up. The roots blower is the same thing. It had a slight rising boost curve. It went from 9 pounds on the load in to 10.4 pounds. So not a lot, but it also has a very short runner manifold. With the turbo, we were blowing through a dual plane intake manifold. So the dual plane intake manifold all by itself compared to the short runner blower manifold is way better. It makes more power all by itself. And then you compound the fact that, hey, look, I have that, plus I have 10 pounds of boost added to that, actually multiplied by that. So now I'm just making a lot more power. So, you know, in that sense, you could think, well, yeah, that's if you put that blower on a dual plane manifold, which I guess we could just with an adapter. But that's the way that blower came. So that's kind of what we test. What part number is that blower for a 350 in Windsor? I don't think that they make it anymore. I don't think that there is a part number. I looked on the HOLLEY site, and I don't think that they have those blowers anymore. Not to change the subject completely, you can. There's no subject now. That was the initial tech discussion at the beginning. So now it's just question and answer. You could do whatever you want. Did you find a blower that would work on a slant 6? Yeah, the M90 will work on a slant 6. The power is indicative of what that type of blower is. I don't think it did terrible for what it is. Assuming no intercooler, is there a rule of thumb for what boost levels are safe without increased ring gap? No, because those two things don't have anything to do with each other. What you need to look at is ring temperature, and there's really no way to gauge that, unfortunately, and especially if you don't know what the ring gap is. Good morning, Richard. I think you're right on target. Right on the target horsepower on the little 327 and 174 blower. Yeah, that's what it did. And the other thing to mention that, and we can talk about this a little bit, is that on the... No, we didn't run intercoolers on Inya. I was thinking one of them had an intercooler and one of them didn't, but none of them did. But in this case, on the Ford, they were all blow through. So they all had a form of intercooling in that the Roots blower had a carburetor on top of it, a 750 Holley blower carburetor. So the blower is drawing fuel in, which cools the charge air, and it does quite a bit. I mean, it could knock 100 degrees at 10 pounds. It could easily knock 100 degrees out of it. Same thing with the turbo, and same thing with the Paxton, is that we had the Vortec carbon closure on that. So both of those were blowing through as a blow-through carbureted application. So again, we're lowering the charge cooler because of the fuel cooling associated with blowing through the carburetor. So those had forms of intercooling, but they all did that. With the new parts, I'm going to put an S480 intercooled blow-through on a 440. The block weakness on the 440 is real. The mains come apart when you put a lot of power on them. I'll keep the boost low. Maybe just a turbocharger will be more realistic. Turbos work good. Went to the Ford dealership this morning to do another wheel bearing, and it rained. So you want this cam behind me, right? That's right. Wait, it's right over here. That one. It's hard to do the mirror image. Hope to save for aluminum block and then turned it up. You want an aluminum block 440? Is that, who makes that? Does Indy make that or somebody? That seems like it's expensive. Is a small block Roots blower holding back some of the power gains offered by the performance mods? Adrian, that's not a 462 valve cam. That cam is a show stable. Yeah. I think I have two of them. I do. I have another one right here. That is some kind. Look at that. Can you see that? That's some kind of small base circle cam there. What the heck is that? $1,839,1960R113. That's some sort of custom grind that somebody did. I don't know what it's for, though. Any idea how hard it would be to fit an M90 to a 302 without hood clearance issues? What are you putting it in? What hood are you putting it under? I'm thinking about a lot since your M90 videos came out. I'm going to run one on a 302. I'm also going to run one on a 462 valve. Did you ever test a 305 with a cam that was somewhere around 204 at 50? I'd have to go back and look at the 305 stuff and see. I don't know if I ran anything that small. Will there be a project with the slant 6 in the future? Yeah, I have the slant 6 and it's ready to go back together. So I will put it back together and we'll run some stuff on it. Todd, so you're making that swap? Okay, cool. Fox body hood clearance. I think the snout length and distributor location are the biggest issue. That's definitely going to be a problem. It's probably not going to fit under a stock hood. Might have been a 210. I know I've run 210 stuff. I can look at some of the 305 stuff that we did. When I did the Ford versus Chevy thing, when I did the 5-liter shootout, we definitely did some smaller cams. 305 TPI. That one's a 218. Looks like the smallest run I did was a 218 cam on that 305. I don't know if we ran. We ran some other 305 stuff. What was this one? This was an XR270 cam. Yeah, I don't see any other ones. It looks like Two Teens was where we were on the 305. $5,500. I have a 512 Eagle Stroker now, but heads are holding it back. Slant 6 versus a Jeep 4-liter shootout. I would think that the later model 4-liter would be a lot better. Would I lose low end torque with this cam? Yes. Compared to a stock cam, you will lose low end with that camshaft. What cam do you recommend for Impala SS with an LS4? I have cams for you. So if you want to send me an email, I can tell you what cam to put in that. It would be the Low Buck Norris. That's the name of my new camshaft. The Low Buck Norris. It's like Truck Norris, but a lot less expensive. And then I also have one step up from that too. But depending on what you're going to do with it, either one of those cams will work good. Turbo's back. Would you recommend, or is there a concern about using stock big block Chevy main caps that have been torqued five times? There's nothing to change any of that. Can you use one of the throttle body injection systems on this type of blower? Yeah, on the Roots blower, you can use anything on it. You could have a carburetor, you could have the 4-hole throttle body, you could have a two-barrel throttle body, a 1-barrel throttle body, whatever you want. Andy, oh no, we reuse the bolts. When a gold-plated Norris. Truck Norris grind in a small block Ford results somewhere between LS48 and a 5.3. No, a small block Ford is not going to make anywhere near what the LS motors make. So if you look at it, it will give you a really good idea. If you look at a stock small block Ford, it makes 255 horsepower. If you look at a stock 4.8, it makes 330, and a stock 5.3 makes 355 or so. So a stock 5.3 is already 100 horsepower better than a small block Ford is. Funny bike. Why would you, if you torque the heads, the studs, how can a stud break the head? 706 are rec port heads for torque and the 3 to 6,000. Well, the 3 to 6,000 is a big RPM range. Rec port heads will make more power through half of that, and the 706 heads will make more torque through half of that. But what motor are you putting it on? Main bearing clearances, I'm at 3. Yeah, you could put it at 3 in the middle journal. Usually 2.5 to 2.8 is on the other ones. And if you have them all at 3, it will work. Just put a good oil pump in it. Can a Canyon Bell Supercharger go on a 3.8 liter L67? Yeah, I have a video up with that, or we already did that. I made an adapter plate a long time ago and put one on a 3.8 liter, and it helped a lot. It makes a lot more power than the M90 does. About 485 horsepower and change into the ARR. So if I resell a 6-liter combo, I could post it for 2,500. Cool. Yeah, I as well want the Truck Norris cam outside, but I'm willing to upgrade valve springs as well for my LS4. Yeah, and there are cheap valve springs available for that stuff. Brian Tooley Racing has a bunch of stuff. I asked Brian about that because I told him that I was getting rid of some of these cams, and guys were asking about springs, and he has some good beehive springs that would work well. Does more duration help to make more power on less boost? Yeah, I guess you could put it that way. But yeah, a bigger cam makes more power NA, and then that reduces the boost. Caden on a 6-liter. If I was putting together, and it depends on what you're trying to do, how much power are you trying to make? Of all the factory heads, a rec port head makes more power. That it makes the most power of any of the factory heads. The 706 head will make more low-speed torque than a rec port head will for 2 reasons. One is that the compression is going to be a lot higher because it's going to be a full point higher than, because the rec port head is like 69 or 70 cc's, and a 3 or the 706 head is like 10 cc's smaller than that. So it'll be a full point. It's also a smaller port, a smaller valve, a change in chamber. And so it's going to make more low speed power, but it's going to fall behind the other head that flows 60 or 70 CFM more, especially if you put a camshaft in it. Did the engine pull vacuum at wide open throttle with the blower? I don't know. We didn't measure vacuum under the carburetor, but probably not. That 750 should be enough. Although now that I look at that and think it's 525, it would have been maybe nice to try an 850 or a 950 on it. But that's the carburetor that they sent with it. So that's what we ran. $3,000 to $4,500 power band. Then you should put the smaller cathedral port head on it. And you got a draggy the other day. It's pretty fun. I recommend if anyone's thinking about getting one. I thought it'd be fun to have an online draggy race. Yeah. The low buck Norris. 6-liter, 823 heads, long tube headers. Yes, please. Actually, I think for that one, I think I would go up to the 218, 219 cam. Is there an adapter plate to mount a Ford T5 to a 5.3? Does anybody know? There are T5s that you can mount directly to an LS. I can only guess at the higher clamp load and very thin deck thickness. I could get a straight answer, but found complaints on the internet about the heads breaking. I wonder why is there not enough structure where the head's bolting down? Benjamin, what adapter are you wanting that for? Is that the M90 on the small block Ford or something? It's because it's going to take more than an adapter plate. But there are already blower manifolds for the 5-liter that the blower would just bolt right onto. I'm debating if I should go T4, T6, or Vibrant clamp on turbo up to 800 horsepower. I got the TIG exhaust myself. No matter. Frank, I don't remember. 800 horsepower. If you're doing a turbo, that's like S475 turbo or 70 VS Racing 7875. The VS Racing 7875 is going to be a T4. And then most of the S475s that you run across are going to be a T6. For 800 horsepower, if that's what you want, and you don't want to make a whole bunch more than that, then I would go with the T4. It'll be more responsive. I have something better than a draggy, a friend with a draggy. Oh, Benjamin. Yeah, I don't have that plate anymore. That was back in probably 2000, I think. I think we ended up cutting that plate up to use the aluminum for something else. My 305 El Camino did an 11.29 eighth and a 17.26 and a quarter. I suppose the 2.4 gears aren't helping. No, 241 is probably not quarter mile or cents, and even worse for eighth mile. So unless you're just using one gear. QuickTime makes an adapter for the T5 to LS. Are subscribers allowed to send you engines for free for testing? Nope, I don't want to get involved in that. I have a new standard oil pump. Do I need a high volume pump, or will it be okay to run for driving a few miles? Need to get to the shop? Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll start up and run and drive. It'll be fine. Just monitor the oil pressure and see. It might be okay. QuickTime Chevy LS to Ford T5 is $1,000 for the bell housing. That's a lot. I think I would just go look for a different transmission. $1,000. That's like 1 million. Yeah, I think I would be looking for the correct transmission or other transmission alternatives. Benjamin, if you can get enough people interested, we'll redo the adapter for the Kenny Bell on there. I'm sure I could get my buddy Tom Demuse to make an adapter for the Kenny Bell. The problem is that the Kenny Bell is a good bit more expensive in terms of blowers. But the nice thing is Tom has an intercooler core that he could use for that. What's the easiest way to make 500 horsepower with a 2005 CTSV LS6 all N8? To make 500 horsepower flywheel horsepower is not hard at all. To make 500 wheel horsepower is very, very hard. And by hard, I mean not hard, it's just expensive. If you want to make 500 flywheel horsepower, it's going to be a really good size camshaft in that. And then because that's an 05 LS6 is going to be that's a 5.7. So you're going to need a pretty good size camshaft for that. And then maybe ported 243 heads. I shifted out of first right at the 8th mile with the 241 gear. Can't remember if it was before or after. I shifted right before the quarter. I've had work full exhaust, but have yet to install the Howard Rattler cam. Everyone tells me I'm going to lose power at 550 lift. The lift has nothing to do with losing power down low. That's all going to be the valve events. It's all going to be duration, the lobe separation angle. I have a Kenny Bell just laying around, nothing to do. I love to put it on. What Kenny Bell do you have? Because there are lots of different sizes and versions. I could probably knock off a 10th, maybe if I could keep my secondaries from opening too soon. The secondaries are opening too soon? Yeah, Keith. Yeah, it's a Gen 357. Yeah, it was the 405 horsepower, or they also had a 385 horsepower version of that, I think. Didn't they upgrade the LS6? Were there two versions of that? And you have ported heads? Okay. The 174 is good for flathead Fords. Yeah, it was 385 in the early ones, and then 405 on the later ones. That's right. See? Mine like a steel trap. Secondaries opening up too soon or too rich when the secondaries kick open? If the secondaries open too soon, that's usually lean, but yeah, it was 405 doing some came with the LS2. The LS2 would be better because it's a bigger motor. And even though that they're rated at similar power, the LS2s made more power when we ran them on the dyno. What's a cheap small block Chevy blower mostly for looks? Well, they don't make these anymore. The LS2 intake was not good. Yeah, the LS6 intake manifold is better than the LS2 intake manifold. The LS2 is better than the LS1, and the LS2 obviously is better than the LS4. You tighten up the spring that allows the secondaries to open or run a vacuum can that opens slower. I had to do this on a heavy car with long gears. A 471, yeah, that would be good. 471 on smaller motors, cool. Plus, they look cool. I wish I had a 471 that I could borrow from somebody because I would like to run that on the trophy 4-cylinder. And Andy, you tried different springs on it to slow that thing? Should be able to get that to open when you want. 241s and lack of power is causing my issue. Yeah, that's a problem. That kind of gear really loads the motor. Just needs boost, right? And then everything's good. Then it's all good. Yep, a 471 on our 4-cylinder. That's what the 4 stands for. It means that every 4-cylinder should have a 471. Mickey Thompson ran one way back in the day. That's kind of why I would want to do it. Oh, that reminds me. Okay. So the stack is back. Small block Chevy, small block Chevy, small block Chevy. Does Hillborn not make a setup for... Does Hillborn make a setup for LS motors? Does anybody know? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? And I'm looking. I thought that they did, and I'm still searching for it right now. So you guys, Keep coming up with good questions. I can answer them. Hillborn, let's see. Let's go back to home. Hillborn intake manifolds. LS swap Datsun 510. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Yes. Small lug Chevy, small lug Chevy, small lug Chevy. I found it. So it's a 300-816. Oh my gosh. There's so much want for that. You just have no idea. Hey guys, fingers crossed. This is just so cool. Coolness scale is just beyond. I mean, how do you not like a Hillborn feel? Zip ties and bias plies. Secondary metering rod change. Cheap small block Chevy answer 471. I was at Pomona with Mickey Thompson, the 471 Pontiac 4-cylinder, a couple of 421 Tempest. That's cool. 4-cylinder, 71 cubic inches. Yeah, we get that. Mine was just poking fun at the number. It's a joke, lady. It's a joke. 2-stroke scavenge. Just rolled the body into my office. I'm setting the stretch of my rod bolts. It's amazing how much it differs from a torque spec. Yep. The stretchiness changes over the life of the bolt. Some of the bolts I've tried are very, very stretchy. Late to the party, and this one applies to my 351 Windsor Econoline I'm building. AFR 185s, tiny 208-ish cam, and a little more ring gap plan for boost. Does Bigfoot think Nessie is real? Yes, I do. That's good. We want that to be true. My first attempt at using plastic gauge. All of my Bonneville motors, all of the Honda stuff was done with plastic gauge. It works just fine. It's very consistent. Especially like anything, the more experience you have with that, it works good. So now we need to, now that I've searched for that, .302 Ford, the Ford. Summit. So is that like a convertible manifold or something? That's $1,500. BDS blower manifolds. Okay, so what do you guys think? Let me know before I have to get going. What do you guys think for putting an M90 on a 302? Go with an existing blower manifold, one they use for 471, 671s, 871s, or just adapt it to a dual plane. What do you guys think? In fact, let's get rid of our poll here. Is a small roots blower holding back some of the power gains? 67% said yes. So we'll have another poll on poll action. Okay, use an existing blower manifold rather than a 4-barrel manifold when adapting the M90 to the small block Ford. So would you rather see an M90 adapted to a small block Ford using an existing blower manifold, which you can buy because there are blower manifolds available for that, or just adapt it to a small block, or just adapt it to like a 4-barrel dual plane manifold? Let's see what the peeps. This is actually a double check for my bore gauge. I think the machine shop didn't put enough clearance on the mains. Kind of been thinking about doing one of these 174s on a 302 with cheap aluminum heads. Have our Maverick to stuff it in. That'll be good. What heads on a 351 Ford 260 seat? Is that a cam spec? Is that you're giving? Off-road rock crawling may go shorter. I'm still debating on whether a 5.3 would be worth the effort. If an easy CF8 speed auto controller with good self-learning, go all out. I want big power in the van. Just got here, but I think the 174 would make plenty of power over the 142. Plenty for a milder small block Ford. Yeah, this made 525. Too small blower will only heat the air trying to get enough boost. And he wants it adapted to a dual plane. A 5.3 with a single 72 millimeter turbo and a 4L80 would be the best bang for the buck. I think could be done for about the cost of a small block Ford NA build. Yeah, if you're trying to make power, 5.3 is hard. It's hard to beat that. 2 M90s, yeah, that's good, Russell. The thing that people are forgetting is that, like this blower, so this 174 blower, 525 horsepower, we can do that with an M90. That's certainly possible. So it's not. This isn't the question. Isn't should we put a bigger blower and make 1 million horsepower? That's a different road. That's a different kind of application. On that small block Ford, what RPM determines? I don't know what your question is. You should develop an M90 carb adapter. The adapter is $1,000. What adapter is? A carburetor adapter for the M90? I made mine for like $50. Adapt a 5-liter EFI lower would be cool. That's a possibility too. And I could even machine down the EFI lower. That's originally what I was thinking for. I thought maybe I could fit it under the hood doing it that way. The only problem with that are fuel rails. The fuel rails are going to interfere with the adapter plate at some point, unless we do a V kind of shaped adapter plate. But then it raises the thing up, and so I've been through this stuff. Even the Aussie Speed M90 carb adapter is only $275. I mean, isn't it, the adapter is just an elbow, right? That's easy to do. Move the fuel rails above the blower and run it on 85 to get the cooling. Yeah, you're not going to be able to do that on a M90. Yeah, Julius, cast elbows, that should be cheap to do. I mean, even if you did an elbow like I did, it was 2 pieces of plate and a single like 45-degree elbow or whatever. It was nothing. I mean, if I can make it, anybody can make it. Would you run side dress or down dress on M90 dual plane? No, I wouldn't run neither one of those. I could run it carbureted because I have a special Super Richie carbureted M90, but I could also run the other one, and we could run it fuel injected. So the problem is that the way that M90 is, the inlet is not great. Ran a B&M 174 for 20 years on a 306 small block Ford. 430 rear wheel horsepower, ran 1080s. Nice. Was it running 10 or 12 pounds or something on that? I'm going to guess. Use an existing blower manifold. So 56% are saying use the existing manifold. And I see that I have a misspelling on there. 2 more minutes. 15 pounds of boost. Okay, yeah, you're spinning the heck out of it. Yep. But it was a carbureted deal, right, P? It was drawing through the carburetor because that helps cool it. 15 pounds on that blower is a lot, though. It's not really happy there. But where it gets unhappy most is at the top of the RPM range, and you gain lots of power through all the rest of it. If you had a tubular 5-liter EFI like the GT40, you could cut the top runners to clear the. Yeah, Julius, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, think of a box R intake manifold with a blower on top of it. Not quite that tall, but something like that. I just think that there's no way to do it and have it still fit under the hood. Fuel injected would be a lot easier, obviously, than carbureted. But so my 671 for my 505 Pontiac will grunt like crazy. That's good. Yep. 59% are saying yes. Because I could run my cool Super Richie modified M90 blower, carbureted. Oh, you want to offset mount the blower like the Kenny Bell is? I kind of want it in the middle, but they're on a small block Ford. We also have to worry about clearing the distributor. And Julius, if you remember the old Sprintex blowers where it's mounted down on the kind of on the side of the head, they did that too. They remote mounted the blower. Anyone interested in a 440 plus a 3-speed? Is the 3-speed transmission attached to the 440? Considering letting a repair shop do my wheel bearing. You don't have a garage that you can put it partway under to do the wheel bearing? One more minute. 17 votes, 59% saying use the existing. So 60-40 kind of. All right, Julius. And we're closing. Motorhome 440. So is it a 440 engine and a 3-speed trans? I'm in the middle of replacing bearings on a differential, 8.6 10 bolt. Okay. $440 would be cool. I'd like to run more 440 stuff. 440. Is it a 3 on the tree? Those are fun shit. Wah, wah, wah. Remember my friends back in high school, Dave's truck was a 3 on the tree. And I think his was a 283. .8 Ford, 31 spline. 31 spline Dini. And on that note, it is time to go. I'll be back tonight. You guys have a good Saturday. Trying to get a bunch of stuff done, but I will be back tonight.